This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, everyone. I am Sohaila Bana, and I'm very glad that today we have with us Tony Semenza, the Executive Director of CAER, which is a wonderful organization. And I was very excited and pleased when I learned about its history, its capabilities, because Tony's now on the chair. I'm sorry, on the advisory board of West Contra Costa Fire Safe Council while he's uh, doing great work for the community. And we hope that we, West Contra Costa Fire Safe Council and CARE, can team up to bring good things to the community. Tony, please.
Yes, we're looking forward to it.
Would you like to tell us about yourself? Like your
Sure.
experience as a firefighter and history and everything briefly before we start.
Yeah, let me give you
not do justice if I do it.
Let me just give you a quick bio of who I am and where I come from. Originally from the East Coast, I taught school for a short period of time. I had a degree in education, went back to school and got another degree in fire science technology. I left school teaching to join the fire department, where I was a career fireman and also a volunteer fireman on the East Coast. I did that for the career work for almost 10 years, and then I left to become the chief of emergency services for Chevron Corporation at a refinery on the East Coast in New Jersey. And then I left that job when that refinery was winding down. They were actually going to close that refinery, and came out and took the job in Richmond at the refinery in Richmond as the chief of emergency services, where I worked for Chevron for almost 23 years, a combination of New Jersey and California. And then when I retired from Chevron, I was on the board of directors of CARE, and I'll talk about that a little later when we get into the presentation. But the board asked me when I retired if I would sit in and take the executive director's job. We had an executive director who left to do some other work. And because I was on the board and familiar with the work CARE was doing, they asked me if I would take over for a few months while they looked for an executive director. Well, that was 23 years ago. I'm still here doing the executive director's job. So I've enjoyed it. It gives me an opportunity to continue to do the work that I've always been doing, and that is to provide a safe and informed public and to work with communities on what they need to do in the event of a problem. So my career and my background has been in education and in fire prevention and fire suppression, and that's what I continue to work on. I did a lot of work as a consultant when I left Chevron, and also while I was the executive director of CARE, did a lot of work in the Middle East and other all over the world on working with refineries and chemical plants on being safe as they could and being a good neighbor to communities. So that's kind of a thumbnail overview of what I've been doing.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So we appreciate it if you could tell us about CARE and its history and everything.
Well, I sent here's what I'd like to do. I sent 2 presentations to Shahila, and what I'd like you to do down the road is send those presentations to everybody on the board, on this call, so they have it. But I can talk either about CARE, or I can talk about the history of the community warning system, or I can incorporate both in this presentation to you. So
would you like to start with?
Why don't we start? Go ahead, Sheila.
Well, which one do you want to start with? Which one do you want to start with?
Okay, can you get those up on the screen?
Which one? History?
Do you have the ability to use that presentation? There you are. That's the warning system. Go to CARE first, if you can.
Hold on.
The CARE presentation so everybody can see it. And then we'll incorporate some of that. But I'll talk about Contra Costa CARE. And you can hit that first one, if you would, on the left-hand side. If you do slide presentation and hit that first slide.
trying to get the right one, but the wrong one is coming here.
On the left-hand side, okay, slideshow. If you hit slideshow up on the top.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the right thing. Hold on. There's something wrong
Why don't
here.
you click on the first one?
Okay.
All right, that's good. Yeah. See if you can click it and it'll go to the next slide. There you go. Okay. So you see here, when CARE started, we actually started as a result of an incident in Bhopal, India, where they had a release of methyl isocyanate, which killed 10 to 20,000 people in India. That was a Union Carbide facility, and they were manufacturing this product. It was used in fertilizer. And the problem was that in India, the community was living right on the fence line with kind of a shanty town that was right on the fence line. When this release occurred, this gas that came out killed a number of people. They estimated that between 10 and 20,000 people died almost immediately. And over the years, because of people inhaling this chemical, that they had many more people died as a result of it. So the Chemical Manufacturers Association started CARE. They started responsible care that was being used by the chemical industry. What we had is Dow Chemical had a facility out in Pittsburgh that made and manufactured chlorine, and they introduced responsible care, and we wanted to include refineries in that process, so we just called it CARE, Community Awareness Emergency Response, CAER. So most of our membership in the early years was made up of emergency responders and professionals. The emergency responders, for the most part, were from chemical plants and refineries, but also included municipal fire departments. It also included Contra Costa Health Services. So we brought all those people together, and we would meet monthly to talk about lessons learned, best practices, and near misses, and share that information. And then that started, like I said, in 1988. And then in 1993, there was a major chemical incident in Richmond. I don't know how many folks remember that, but the General Chemical plant released an oleum from a tank car, and it affected people not only in Richmond, but it went as far as Pinole when this incident happened. So as a result of that, Dr. Walker, who was the health services director, Contra Costa Health Services director, got together with the refinery managers and chemical plant managers and started to talk to them about what they can do working together to share information about safety. Remember, at that time, these were competitors and nobody was sharing any of that information. These were companies that were competitors. And so Dr. Walker got them together and said, look, I know you're competitors, but why can't we share information as it relates to safety? And that's how this program all started. You can go to the next slide if you would. So as a result of that, there was a two-pronged attack. Dr. Walker got together with the refinery and chemical plant managers to form this alliance where they started talking about, how they can share information. And at the same time, Dr. Walker came to CARE, remember that loosely knit group of people, and said, hey, I'd like you guys to look at what we can do in Contra Costa County to provide a notification system that could alert and notify people if we had an incident like that General Chemical incident. So in 1993, shortly after the General Chemical incident, we formed a committee. It was called the Community Notification Committee. We wrote a 52-page report, but before we wrote the report, we spent almost 6 months meeting weekly, talking with a committee that was made up of 20 people. These were agency, industry, and community people that met every week to talk about what is out there in the world that can provide alerting and notification that we might be able to use here in Contra Costa County. When we and before we wrote this 52-page report, not only did we look and bring in different vendors to talk to us, but we also got a smaller group of that 15 people and went out to Louisiana and Texas to look at existing systems so that we can provide the best available system that we thought might work in Contra Costa County. When we were all done with that, we came back and wrote this 52-page report, which outlined not only how to alert and notify people, but how we would build a system like this in Contra Costa County. And then between 19, and you can see it was a slow process from the standpoint that we had to raise the money and we had to develop this plan. When we presented the plan, the 52-page plan to the Hazardous Material Commission, they said, hey, this is great. Now, why don't you present it to the County Board of Supervisors? We did that, and the County Board of Supervisors said, hey, this is great. Now what we'd like your team to do is reduce the number of people, get a smaller committee together, and implement all those recommendations in that 52-page report. And from 1995 to 2000, that team, which was a smaller group of people, we had 7 people, community, industry, and agency people. We developed not only a plan to raise the funds, but we also came up with a plan on how industry was going to pay for it. We wanted to build a system with no tax dollars being used, that the money would be raised from industry to pay for the entire project. And then we came up with a funding plan. We came up with a number of, an education plan. And then we raised a little over $5 million to build the system. You can go to the next slide. And that was monumental because, it had never been done. And what we incorporated in that was some of the ideas we learned in Texas and Louisiana. They had been using alerting and notification systems for a long time, but their system was just sounding sirens and then looking at the public radio and TV stations to get out information. We wanted to do that, but we also want to incorporate telephone ring down system. We want to incorporate pagers. We want to incorporate all the technology that was available in the 90s to get information out to the community, not only to first responders, but indeed to the community. So then to do this project in 1996, we actually became a corporation. CAER became incorporated. I report to a board of directors. The board of directors includes industry agencies and community representatives to help guide the organization in the future. In fact, today was one of our board meetings where we meet monthly to talk about issues that CAER is working on. So I report to a board, and that happened as a result of that release in 1993. So in 1998, we actually received the Chemical Education Foundation Chemical Products Stewardship Community Award, went to Washington, D.C. to receive this award. And it was given to us as a result of the work we had done with the community and with the industry, having a combination of working together to actually develop a system that would be used to alert and notify people. Now, remember, alerting was the putting up sirens in the different communities around the facility. And in Richmond, there were a number of other sirens added to the project. And let me explain how that happened. What happened was at the time that we were building this system, Chevron in 1989 had a large fire, and they were in the process of rebuilding part of the refinery as a result of that fire. Well, Donna Powers, who was a member of the board council in Richmond, worked with the refinery and said, look, I know that you're putting sirens around your facility, and I know the other refineries are doing the same thing, but I think Richmond would like to have additional sirens in the transportation corridors outside the refinery where tank trucks or tank cars may travel in the event of an emergency. So we added additional sirens. Chevron gave them additional money, okay, above and beyond the $5 million that it cost to put up the original project. Chevron gave them another $500,000, and they put up another 14 sirens in the city of Richmond. And so we received that award in 1998 for all the work we were doing, not only with industry as a partner, but also with the community. And that was something that was not being done anyplace else. And what we did is this system ties in. When we built the warning system, we tied it in not only with radio and TV stations to get information out to the community, but also with pagers and telephone ring down system, all the tools, all the bells and whistles that were available at that time. If you go to the next one, please. And what we formed a number of action teams as a result of the incorporation. And you can see emergency notification is one of the teams that we have in that under the CAER umbrella. And what that emergency notification team does on a monthly basis, it meets with the county and agencies and industries to talk about the use of the warning system. What are the protocols and the procedures we're using? Do they need to be changed? Do they need to be upgraded? Are there any issues with what we're doing? And so that team also met today at 11 o'clock, and we talked about certain upgrades that are being made in the system. Now, the interesting thing is, when we built the system, we told you that it cost $5 million. That was the initial cost. So the question was, how do you keep this project evergreen? It costs money to keep it evergreen because technology is changing as we speak. There's technology changing and becoming available to us. So what happened in Contra Costa County, they passed a bill, AB 2185, which actually taxes industry that use, manufacture, or transport hazardous materials. That money goes to county health services. But what we did was say, county health services, you need to take a portion of that money and give it to the warning system so that the warning system stays evergreen. Now, originally, when we built the warning system, we turned it over to Contra Costa Health Services. Once it was built and tested, we actually gave it, CAER built it, CAER actually gave it to the county health services. And that's another story in itself. You'd be surprised, working with lawyers, how long it took to actually give them something that would provide alerting and notification to the community. But we did that. We turned it over to them. Dr. Walker originally had it in his shop, which was County Health Services. And then what happened after a few years, the sheriff wanted to move that community warning system into his shop. So Contra Costa Health Services gave it to the office of the sheriff. The office of the sheriff hired a number of people, which became the community warning system group. And that money that the county health services had, they provide about $1 million, $1.2 million, $1.3 million, depending upon how much money is needed by the warning system group to keep the system evergreen, to make sure that new technology that's out there is being incorporated into the system. The system doesn't look like anything like when we started because of the technology that's available. So you can see here, there's a number of action teams that we have. Community notification is one. Community outreach is another, where we try and meet with service groups, schools, daycare centers, public or private schools to talk about outreach, community outreach. Emergency preparedness, We have a team there. We have a hazmat team, industrial hygienist team. This is a group of people that work in refineries and chemical plants who look at hygiene situations. They meet on a monthly basis to talk about lessons learned or near misses or anything that they can add to help each other. Process safety the same way. Petrochemical Mutual Aid is an organization of emergency responders, not only in industry, but also in the public. Richmond Fire is part of it. Contra Costa Fire is part of it. So it's a team that talks about how we can help each other in the event that there's a large emergency. In refineries, they'll respond and help refineries. If it's out in the public somewhere, refineries will respond and help them deal with it, because refineries and chemical plants have specialized equipment that the city didn't need to buy because they had it available because of the industry in the area. And we also have a security team. These are subject matter experts, not only in the facilities, but also law enforcement, local law enforcement, office of the sheriff, local police departments within the county. So there's a number of teams that work under the CAER umbrella. Now, these teams are funded by CAER. And the way we get our funding is that the CAER members, industry, most of the industry people pay to be a member of CAER. We raise somewhere in the area of $200,000 a year, and some of that money is distributed among these teams so they can continue to do the work that they're doing. Next, if you have a question, just don't hesitate in asking a question if you have one. We don't want to go too fast, but we want to make sure that if there's a question you have about how we were organized or how we funded or any of these issues that I'm talking about, please feel free to ask a question. Okay, the next one here. In 2001, we had over 30 individuals from agencies, industries, and community meet to develop the protocols and procedures. Now, remember, when we built this system, we had to come up with protocols and procedures on how it was going to be used. You know, so we didn't just leave that to industry or agency people. We got community people involved. And over the course of 2 months, we had about 6 or 7 meetings at the Shell Clubhouse in Martinez, where we had over 30 individuals representing a number of different views come in, and we got consensus, and we developed the protocols and the procedures that are being used to run the system. And that's important. It's important when we think about things that you guys want to do and how you want to do them in the future. It takes a lot of people working together, getting all points of view to come up with a consensus on how to move forward. And then in June in 2001, CAER turns over the warning system to the county, as I said before. Next slide. And then part of this whole process with CAER was also how do we build on what we already have. That program that Dr. Walker was working with the refinery and chemical plant manager. Remember, I said a dual track. We were building the system. He was working with chemical and refinery managers on sharing information. Well, what we wanted to do is expand that. And so what we did in 2000, we came up with a program called Safety Summits, CAER Safety Summit Program. And it started in 2000. And to date, this is a little out of date because we're already up to 70 different safety summits. So we averaged, for the first 10 or 12 years, we averaged 4 a year. And now we've gone to it, having 3 of these every year, where we bring subject matter experts from the different facilities together with industry and agency and community people. And we have presentations about lessons learned, near misses, and share that information. And in fact, what we'll do, Shahila, we'll get you on that mailing list. And if you have time one day, we'd like to get you out to see these safety summits, to see what we're doing and how that's working, because that could kind of help you in the planning stages of what you're thinking about. So we run these safety summits. We also, as you can see, our mission statement is to actively enhance public health and safety. That's what CARE is about. There's our core objectives: safe industrial facilities, a coordinated emergency response, effective safety sharing forum, and a trust-based relationship with the community. And what we've been able to do is really work with the community, these different organizations that we work with, to try and keep that message alive. And the message we've been, and this is interesting because you guys were looking at, hey, how might we use sirens in the process of looking at wildland fires? We were focused, remember, on industrial incidents. And so our message was, when the siren sounded, we wanted people to shelter in place, turn on the radio or TV to get information on exactly what was happening. Remember, the sirens only alert you that there's a problem. The real meat of the system is the notification to tell people what you want them to do in a particular situation. And our training has always been to tell people to shelter in place. Now, we know what happened in Maui, and I'll relate that in a minute. Maui, they built a system, and that system was primarily used for tsunamis. And what they said was, hey, when you hear the sirens, you get out of your house and go to high ground. They didn't use the sirens when they had that terrible fire in Lahaina, which was a terrible mistake, because if the siren sounded and you went out of your house and you looked up at the hill and the hill was burning, you weren't going to go up in the hill, but you were going to get the hell out of there. So they failed miserably and didn't think that people could look at a situation and say, okay, I'm not going up that hill because it's burning and it's coming this way. I'm going to evacuate this area. So, it's all about the messaging. Remember, any siren system is only alerting people. We also looked at, when we were building the system, about the availability not only to have a siren sounded, but to have a PA system or, incorporated in the siren. That's a real problem. There's been a number of studies that went out, and people don't hear that, the quality of that message sometimes isn't very clear, and people don't understand it. So our message has always been, when you hear a siren, that alerts you that something's happening. Now let's get you accurate information so that you can do what's best for you to do in that particular emergency. So you can see how we've been working this whole process for a number of years. Go to the next one. Is there a next one?
Yes, the last one, I guess.
Yeah. So some of our major accomplishments that CARE has been since 1988. We building a community warning system, an outreach program. We have grants that we give. The emergency preparedness group has a number of grants that they give out every year. We run an annual shelter in place drill, which will be the first Wednesday in November every year, where we work with the schools and daycare centers around the county to train them on exactly what to do when those sirens go off. Oh, there's a question. I'm sorry, Charlotte. Go ahead.
Oh, yes, I have a question.
Yes.
I want to know, now I get the emergency warning system. I get that. But in the event that there is an emergency where we have to evacuate, is there a central location in our area that we will be able to go to? Or do we just have to we on our own?
Yeah, no, but I think and that's a great question, because as I said, Charlotte, the alerting, or the siren only alerts people. It's the message that you're going to get on your telephone, the text message, or you're going to get on the phone saying, hey, this is what the problem is. If we want you to shelter in place, we'll say shelter in place. If we want you to evacuate, we'll tell you to evacuate, but we'll also tell you where to evacuate to, which is very important, because the one thing that I've learned, Charlotte, in the 50 plus years, I'm an old guy, okay? In the 50 plus years that I've been doing this, actually 60 years that I've been doing this, the hardest thing to do in an emergency is evacuate people. if you're going to evacuate people, they really need to know where to go and how to get there, and that where you're sending them, that facility is going to be open to accept them. So it's a very tricky situation when we start talking about evacuation. And that's where I think I can help this organization mostly in looking at how we can work on what we're trying to do in the community when we're talking about wildland situations. Does that answer your question?
Kind of, because I'm like, if we had to evacuate tomorrow,
right?
Okay, where would we go tomorrow?
Okay, so are you living?
I'm in Hilltop.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I'm in Hilltop.
Okay, so have you guys worked with Zone Haven on an evacuation plan? Do you know who Zone Haven is? Shahila,
I don't.
I know what Zone Haven is, but as far as I know, you're supposed to evacuate and you're on your own. I don't think if there's any destination you're gonna go to in case of wildfire, right?
Here's what we really need to be focused on. The first thing we need to be focused on is truly have a clear and concise understanding of what Zone Haven is all about. Okay, it's a process like the warning system, Contra Costa warning system. To get text messaging, you need to sign up for the warning system. Okay, and you can do that by going to Contra Costa Health or Contra Costa CWS, and I'll give you that information in a little bit.
I'm signed up already.
Okay, you're signed up with that. Zone Haven is another program where you need to be signed up for.
Oh.
Yeah, you need to be signed up for it because that's how you get the message on where to go. And we're gonna pursue with Shahila and I and whoever else, we're gonna pursue exactly what Zone Haven is all about, where their evacuation locations are, how the fire department is working with the Zone Haven. We really need to get a good handle on that. So when we start talking to people and training people about what we expect them to do if there's a wildland fire in their area, it's absolutely important that there's a concise, clear plan on how to evacuate and where to go. And what do we do about the people that can't evacuate? If we've got people that have medical issues that can't evacuate, what are we going to do for those people? So there's a lot of questions that we need to resolve. And I think I can help you in a lot of those different areas.
Can you tell me your email?
I'll send it to everyone along with the link. And also I will share information about Zone Haven as well.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Tony, would you like to go ahead with the presentation and then we'll ask, we'll open for questions.
So just some of the accomplishments, our major accomplishments with building the warning system, giving out grants, starting these safety summits, industrial corridor community warning system project, annual shelter in place drill. So those are some of the things that we consider major accomplishments, and we continue to work on those because it's never ending. Education is the key to a successful warning system, no matter what you're trying to warn people about. If you don't educate them, it's going to fall apart. So with that, I think that was the last slide on that presentation, was it not?
This is the last one. Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, so I can answer questions regarding that. I can get into more information on the warning system if you want it. But just if you have questions or issues, let me know, and I'm here to help.
Thank you. Let's see if there are any questions. I have a couple of questions myself, but I'll see if there are any questions on the floor first. Maureen, go ahead.
Maureen?
Unmute yourself, please.
Thanks for your presentation. I'm sorry I came in late, but you know, what was the failure with the community warning system with the MRC, the Martinez refinery situation?
Oh, sure. Sure. Okay, that's a good question. So in November, right after Thanksgiving of last year, the Martinez Refinery Company had a release of catalyst fines. And that was due to when they were trying to start up their fluid cracker, catalytic cracker. It's a process that takes, it's a little complicated in starting these things up. So you have to be very precise. What happened is that during this process, in the middle of the night, they let cat fines go out one of the stacks, okay? They should have been able to monitor that because they had equipment there, but they failed to recognize that they were having a problem. So now you have this 20 or 24 tons of this stuff get out into the community. It isn't reported till the next day when they got a number of calls from the community saying, hey, what's all this stuff on my car? So they had a major failure because what industry has been trained to do with the warning system is anytime they have a situation where there's a possibility that something that they're doing might affect the community, they're supposed to use the warning system. And that is a series of computers that talk to each other. They can get on a computer and say, hey, we're having a problem. This is what it is. When they hit the button, it goes to everybody. It goes to other facilities. It goes to the county health services. It goes to the community warning system people. It goes to an awful lot of people. They failed to do that. As a result of that, what's happening, the district attorney is investigating, excuse me, why the failure occurred. And they're probably going to get fined for that. But that was a level 2 incident, meaning that we weren't going to blow sirens in that particular thing because sirens are being blown for a level 3. A level 3 incident is one in which the offsite stuff that is happening will be detrimental to the community and could cause serious harm to the community. That's when we sound the sirens. This level 2, which it was, meant that there were people, if you had asthma or respiratory problems, this catalyst release could affect you, and we want you to shelter in place. Now, what the county would have done if they received that information immediately, they could have sent out text messages. They could have warned people, hey, if you have a respiratory problem, close your doors and windows, stay inside. We've had a release of catalyst fines. There was also a number of other problems with that whole situation. One is the process that the county uses to follow up on these investigations. I happen to be on the oversight committee as a community member in Martinez. I live in Martinez. And because of my background, I'm on the oversight committee. And this is a committee that's supposed to work with the county to be able to respond to these kind of situations. But the process is flawed. And I've said this to the county board of supervisors. The reason it's flawed, Marion, is because what they want to do is it's well planned. They wanted to get inclusion from the community. They wanted to get this team together, and they wanted the team to bring in the contractors that they needed to deal with the problem. Takes far too long. When that release happened, and I've said this to the county, the minute they knew that there was a level 2 incident and there was this catalyst fines that went out, and there was a concern from the community as to whether or not this was hazardous to my health, the county health services staff does not have a toxicologist on their staff. So they left it, they left it to the county. They left it to this oversight committee to choose a contractor. They sent out bids. I told them, the county, if you don't have a toxicologist on staff, you should have one on retainer. So immediately, if you needed a toxicologist, you pick up the phone, you say, get out here. What we did with this process, we're 11 months into this project, okay, this process. We still don't have answers. And I maintain, because of my background, we should have had answers in a month. We should have been able to tell you as a community member, it's either okay to plant your vegetables, it's okay to eat your vegetables. We should have been answering those questions, not 11 months later. It's a mess. We have to clean that up. that process. Well intended, but it doesn't work very quickly. And what you as a community member want to know, hey, is there a problem? What action do I need to take? We failed.
I know the test results came out in May and way past. It was terrible. Thank you.
And I said right from the beginning, when I was on this committee, I said right from the beginning, we're gonna get a toxicologist out here 6 months after it happened. They're gonna take samples, and then it's gonna take another month or two to write the report. And then we're gonna have a meeting with the community, and we're gonna tell the community the results of that. And if we tell the community, oh, it's not a problem, you think the community is going to believe you 10 months after? It's crazy. You want to know when it's happening or shortly after it happens. So one of my goals is working with the supervisors and health services to say, we need a process that works faster, works to benefit the people, not to, check off these things that the county says, well, we need to do. We need inclusive. We need to be inclusive. When there's a hazardous materials situation and people don't know what's going out there, you need to respond quicker than we're responding.
Thank you very much, Tony. Before I get other questions, I want to jump in because it's related to this. And that is, Maureen and I were just in a meeting. We learned about a community group that are working on AB 167, which is going to mandate refineries to do certain things. And I remember what you had said about a lack of a timeline for reports, that there was an accident in Chevron 2 years, something after there's no report. So I suggested to them, and also this protocol for certain tests after an incident. They shouldn't wait for the community to get together and decide there should be a protocol for certain things. So I'm going to suggest actually that they connect with you, or I don't know, with CAER, but we need to work on that. I just wanted to let you know, but we'll be communicating about that. And Maureen, I hope you can help me with that. Thank you very much. Marilyn, you're next.
Yes, Marilyn.
I actually put some of the information in the, here, let me move my screen so I don't look like I'm
in the chat. Thank you.
Yeah, Zone Haven has been sold, and it's now part of a company called Genesis. And so Zone Haven has become Genesis Protect. There's actually an app. I put a link in there so people can start kind of looking at it, but you have to share your location to work. And the truth is, I find it easier. I just downloaded, because I didn't know the app was ready. I just downloaded the app, and it's much easier to work with in terms of keeping up with notices. I'm also delighted to say that I saw they're going to expand it to earthquake and flooding. That is super cool, because that really will get the big three. Well, we don't have hurricanes, but those are the big three for our communities. So I do encourage people to play with that app. I didn't see a place to sign up. I really think the approach now is to use this new app, and spell Genesis with an A, because it's a Genesis with an E. And it's not the same company.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. Michelle, you're next.
Hi, I just wanted to comment on the Genesis business decision. So my understanding is that Genesis has joined the business venture, the business side of Zone Haven, but the access remains the same. So in the chat feature, I posted a list of QR codes, CWS, Zone Haven, and also the defensible space QR code. I also posted the link for CWS alerts. Another just resource for everyone is Nixle. If you text 888-777 and enter your zip code, you will immediately get a response to your phone letting you know that you are now receiving Nixle alerts. And I see Tony nodding his head, which tells me that I'm on the right track. The boss is telling me that I'm doing the right thing.
Michelle, the Nixle, where do you live, Michelle?
Oh, I'm out in East County. I'm the Contra Costa Fire Protection District County Coordinator for Wildfire Mitigation and Grants.
And Nixle is being used by different cities have different ways to communicating with their population. Martinez had Nixle, they canned that. Now they've got their own another system. It does exactly the same thing Nixle does. It allows the city to get information and then repost it to their people that are signed up.
Yes, and I know that the Sheriff's Department and other agencies are still relying on Nixle. So even though a city may have stepped away from Nixle as a very local bubble decision, Nixle is still active within the county.
Thank you.
Thanks. Karen, you're next.
Could I just comment on that really quick? Richmond uses Nixle, and you can do multiple places. So that's really important if you want to keep up with other communities like where you work.
Thank you.
Oh, Jesus.
Karen, your turn.
Can you hear me? I just knocked myself off. I'm in Humboldt, so you can hear me. You don't need to look at me. So thank you for bringing Tony in, because he's the first straight, truthful, fully informed person that I've encountered. I've got a lot of grievances, and I will not bring them up here at this meeting, but I'd like to express them to him either in person or in writing. I also have a lot of suggestions for solutions that, but the bureaucracy that he touched on exists, especially in the CWS department, where it's arbitrarily decided many times as to who to alert. And we've encountered this. I've lived in Richmond since before Donna Powers started the Sirens. I've also lived in Hawaii. I live in Humboldt. They use Sirens to notify people and to get them. So I really appreciate you being on our side, Tony, and maybe you can help cut through some of this. Well, you've been trying to cut through this red tape. Also, where money can be better spent for community education very effectively. I've got a lot of ideas, and we are also implementing this. Thank you very much.
I think, and I appreciate that. And what we need to do, Sheila, is work with, we'd be more than happy to work with Karen and any of the groups that need, education, and work with them on how we can build an education plan that does really what's needed to be done in the particular areas of the county. So we'd be happy to work with you.
Would you like to briefly mention the grants opportunities, and then I'll ask, I have some questions for you after that.
Yeah, whatever we can do to help, we want to be there to help. That's our goal.
Yeah, are there any grants provided by CAER to community groups?
There is. There's a number of grants. In fact, the grant program is going to be, there are very shortly, we'll be putting out on our website applications for grants. The grants are awarded in January or February, so it's important that if you're looking for grant money on anything to deal with emergency preparedness, that you take a look at these application and put in a request for a grant. We give out on an annual basis somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000 a year in different grants. It can be a single grant can be for $5,000, or it can be for $1,000, or it depends on the number of applications we receive. We then have a team that looks at the application, that if it meets the criteria of emergency preparedness, then that committee selects the folks that'll get the grant. So I will work with you, Shahila, and we'll make sure your group sees those applications. And if you have, projects that you want to work with and you need some seed money, we're there to help you.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. Yeah, we definitely need it. I have a major question and then a minor question. My major question is about sirens that you talked about. Is there any way actually that we can have talking sirens? Berkeley has installed them. They tested them. It seems like there are very high quality voice commands that people can hear very well. So they can be used for any occasion.
Yeah, technology is getting better.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I said the technology is getting better, but you know,
a lot better. The only problem is that they're expensive. Can you? And also, I should add, our community does not have a single siren. While we're close to Martinez, Phillips, Chevron, Benicia. So can you help us come up with a funding plan?
Well, what we need to
get them.
What I think I can help you with is developing a plan. As you said, the sirens are very expensive. We're talking about a $70,000, you know, in the ballpark because of the sirens today. There's a lot of electronics. We're not using wires anymore. Everything is electronics. You know, sending signals to the siren. So the sirens, to put up a siren today is very expensive, in the area of anywhere from $60,000 to $70,000. You know, so we need to have a plan. We need to talk about, you know, how you get funding for something like that. But before we do that, or while we're doing that, we need to talk about an education plan that can start talking to people and training people on what they need to do, what they need to know now, and what kind of notifications can they get now to be safe in the event of an incident. Now, we had a question before. I just want to cover one other thing. We had a question before, I think Karen's question, with the community warning system group. Karen, we were talking about some of the issues there, the bureaucracy. But one of the things that system can do is they can draw a circle, a polygon, a triangle to try and get the communities or the areas that are truly affected and send messages to them. I know there's a lot of bureaucracy anytime you deal with some of the agencies we have, but that is one of the tools they have that's very effective. We just need to make sure that it gets used, and it gets used quickly when there's an incident. So I'd be glad to work with Karen in the future to see if we can't work on some of those issues. But thank you for the question, Karen. Appreciate it. I'm sorry, Sheila.
No problem. Can you tell us what the security team is about?
Sure. The security team that I talk about, again, it's subject matter experts that are responsible for the security of the facility.
Got it.
They work with law enforcement in their area to make sure they're part of the team, so that if a facility, you know, you'd be surprised at the amount of security that the different facilities have. You know, literally hundreds of cameras watching all of their fence line, detection systems watching their fence line to try and prevent intruders from getting into the facility. And they work with law enforcement in their areas to make sure there's a team effort to try and keep that facility safe. So that's what that security team does.
Excellent. My last question, because I don't see any raised hands, so I share my question. I used to work for Caltrans, and I know Caltrans has highway advisory radio. So in case of an earthquake, for example, or public emergency where other radios don't work, they also have message signs on the road that tells you, turn your car radio on and listen to this band. And then it has messages. Does anybody know about
You're tied into the warning system. The community warning system is tied into Caltrans, and they'll put information on those signs if they get the information on incidents.
So they're
stay away from.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure. I thought, okay. Thank you. Very good. Karen, you get to answer the last question.
Yeah, thank you. Again, you made the point the siren is to warn people. it says shelter in place and turn on whatever will give you information. I think that's great because everybody's been saying, no, it will only address in West County or in Richmond spills of chemicals, and it cannot address wildfire, earthquakes, terrorism, anything else. And my position has always been just tell people that you have something to pay attention to, and the sirens have hit everybody, whether they're old or don't use cell phones and don't have all this electronic stuff or whatever. So a very simple alert that will tell everybody to pay attention, and you can inform everybody by using something as simple as refrigerator magnets and just keep putting them out there. In Hawaii, when I was a kid, we had the sirens to tell us it was curfew time. We also had warnings about another Pearl Harbor attack. In Humboldt, we get sirens for fires and earthquakes. They don't say, oh, it's only for this topic that you have to do it, and you're going to have to use cell phones or text messaging to learn all this other stuff. It should be a very simple message, and you don't need to pay for upgrading the sirens. You do need to have definitely a siren in El Cerrado at station 63 and add more sirens, and $70,000 is nothing in your budget. So please work with us to simplify it and to allow this for here. Thank you.
Will do. Yeah. Thank you for the input.
Yeah, I second it on behalf of the community. We really need a siren in this community. Thank you very much, Tony. Time flies when you're having fun. I can't believe that we are at the end of our hour. Very, very good, excellent information. Thank you so much. And let's just stay in touch. Let us know about the grants and let us work together with Michelle from Measure X to raise public awareness and work together for emergency preparedness. Thank you so much.
Let me know what I can do, and I'd be more than happy to work with you or anybody else that you deem necessary.
Definitely. We'll be in touch by email. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you so much, Tony. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.